What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of an update, and we're gonna talk some more about a subject that seems to be falling off of the national headlines or the national consciousness. It seems, as tragedies go, the more time that passes, the more that we ignore the tragedy, even though the effects of said tragedy can be years and decades um, felt for decades after the initial incident. We tend to forget what's going on. But before I jump into that, I did want to give you guys an update. So yesterday's Motivational Monday, I told you guys that, we're getting older and we got to realize that we're getting older and know our limitations. And I also told you that I was going on my way to the ER to find out what was going on with my ankle because I hurt myself over the weekend. Well, I'm thrilled to let you guys know that I didn't break anything. I just have a sprain in my ankle. I'm currently in a splint on my right foot. I don't know how long I'm leaving that splint on. I really don't like immobility, and so um, I'm gonna be hard pressed. I've already had it on for a day. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be able to hold out having this thing on my foot, but we'll see. I don't know. I took off last night. I didn't go to work. I stayed home, got plenty of rest, and that may be what I do today as well, but I'm not sure. I might just decide screw it and go to work and just try to take it easy at work. Anywho, but that's not what I really wanted to talk to you about. I just wanted to give you an update because, you guys are in my world now, so I might as well keep y'all up to date about what's going on in Eric's world. Kind of like Bobby's world, but it's Eric's world. Anywho, all right, so I want to read to you from an article out of The Nation, which is talking about the Ohio rail disaster. And discussing some key topics on it. So, out of The Nation, it says here the Ohio derailment catastrophe is a case study in disaster capitalism. There was that I don't know if you guys really understand what capitalism, the ideology behind capitalism is, but it's basically a system that is designed to extract profit. This system does not care for social safety nets. This system does not care to make sure that everybody is able to live a comfortable life. This system is meant for maximum profitization, all right? At the expense of the economy, at the expense of the ecology, at the expense of the environment, at the expense of human capital, human people, at the expense of workers. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell, drop some comments and share the video. All right, here we go. The Ohio derailment catastrophe is a case study in disaster capitalism by Mel Buer. This was February 15th, so this is a few weeks ago, and I wanted to bring it to you. Rail workers say the industry has long ignored pleas for better safety protocols. As public outrage has grown over the toxic fallout from last week's fiery derailment of a Norfolk Southern freight train in East Palestine, Ohio, the urgent questions behind this disaster echo the past year's confrontations over working conditions in the lightly regulated rail industry. Indeed, the catastrophe in Ohio, together with another hazardous derailment in Houston, Texas, just a week later, drives home the steep costs in health and well-being that we all incur when we fail to heed rail workers' calls for more regulation and adequate staffing mandates. Sidebar, CNN had a discussion panel about this rail disaster and the after effects. And on that discussion panel, they had a dude talking and giving opinions and defending the freight who was a lobbyist for Norfolk Southern specifically. And they never disclosed that on their broadcast. So be leery of news broadcasts that you watch when they're having panel discussions because they're not telling you who those people are that are discussing opinion points one way or another or whatever. They don't tell you who they are. They had a lobbyist for Northern Norfolk Southern on their show defending Norfolk Southern and never told you he was a paid lobbyist by Norfolk Southern. So be very leery on what you consume. As rail workers sought to win basic guarantees of staffing support and sick leave from rail carriers long accustomed to selling labor short and winning major regulatory concessions from federal agencies, they stressed how the unsustainable demands placed on their working lives would result in disasters just like the one in East Palestine. The Northeast Ohio village of about 5,000 people is 40 miles northwest of Pittsburgh and 20 miles south of Youngstown. Already, those metropolitan areas are under alert for the air and water contamination originating from the Palestine derailment. And in Palestine proper, many residents are already reporting troubling health symptoms and dying area wildlife as they weigh the risks of remaining exposed to the toxic fumes and chemicals leaked from the derailed tanker cars carrying hazardous materials. Keep in mind, thousands of fish died immediately. Keep in mind, there was a gigantic black uh, cloud of smoke coming up from the controlled burn. That stuff has to come back down. Keep in mind that residents in the area have been reporting nauseousness, headaches, and all kinds of other health effects from breathing in these fumes. That is not being reported on national media, but independent media is on the ground in East Palestine, interviewing the people there and finding out what's going on from the people that are on the floor, that are on the ground level. In the immediate aftermath of the derailment, rail officials ordered that the vinyl chloride hauled by 5 of the Norfolk Southern cars in the 150-car train be burned off to prevent a still greater explosion. But that action sent hydrogen chloride and phosgene, 2 dangerous gases, spewing into the air. EPA investigators have since identified other hazardous chemicals the train had been hauling, including ethylene glycol, monobutyl ether, ethyl hexyl acrylate, isobutylene, and butyl acrylate. All stuff that I have no idea what it is. And the EPA has released a report saying that chemicals from the derailment have leached into the soil and water in the aftermath of the accident. That doesn't just go away. And you got to understand something. We've had issues as working people. We've had issues with the railroads since they began laying tracks. Why? Because capitalism. Bottom line, they want as much profits as possible while not paying out anything. They want to pay out as little and gain as much. We've been trying to share our concerns around this for a while now. Ross Gruters, current rail employee and co-chair of Railroad Workers United, said, "It wasn't a matter of if this was going to happen, it was a matter of when and where. And unfortunately, there's a high likelihood that this will happen again, somewhere, if the root causes of the issues are not addressed." Rank and file workers organizing with Railroad Workers United have waged high-profile pressure campaigns to improve rail safety and retain staffing. Jason During, an RWU organizer and a legislative representative of Smart, Nevada, says that focusing industry and regulatory attention on the threat of derailments has been a continual challenge. Rail workers with Fight for Two-Person Crews has been waging an allied campaign to lobby state and federal lawmakers to create and enforce standards for safer train staffing, a mandatory minimum of two-person crews on freight trains. Last year, the Federal Railroad Administration proposed to reinstate a two-person crew rule and opened a public hearing in December 2022. During the public comment period for the rule change, more than 13,000 comments were logged in favor of it. With the country's attention now fixed on the disaster in East Palestine, reformers say that the time to act is now. "This is an opportunity for us to really identify safety risks in the industry," said Greg Regan, president of the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. He noted that the TTD has been working on improving rail safety for workers and the communities in the path of freight traffic. I think it's important. It's something that you will hear from a lot of rail workers and people who've been seeing sort of the changes in the industry, the deterioration of the drastic reductions in workforce, and the focus on speed over safety. Focusing on speed over safety. Why? Once again, it's because the faster you can get those deliveries done, the quicker you can turn around that profit and get that train coming back the other way with more stuff. Rail workers have insisted for years that the staffing cuts that rail carriers have pursued to pad their bottom line would create a safety crisis in the industry. Through precision scheduled railroading, they've cut staffing levels not just for the operating side, but for maintenance and basically all crafts across the line. Remember, railroad industries at the peak of their employment employed 1 million people. They now are below 200,000 employees. That is a drastic cut. Who's doing the inspections? Who's maintaining the rail? Who's operating these trains? That's a drastic cut in personnel. But for maintenance and basically all kinds across the line. Doring said these acute staff shortages also mean that freight lines are subject to incomplete or infrequent inspections, compounding the risks of environmental disaster. The job losses that we've seen and heard about over the last 4 to 5 years come at a price. A lot of times that price is public safety, said one rail worker who requested anonymity in the face of potential retaliation from his employers. The railroads cut off track maintenance and the tracks get inspected less. I feel the railroad looks at these derailments as the cost of doing business while still coming out ahead. Gruters stressed that the breakdown in regulatory and labor standards is system-wide. There isn't one cause of this, and there's not one fix. This is a series of failures, they said. With all those layers of protection that have been removed, it's just sort of lined up perfectly to create this. It's maddening and it's scary, and people should be concerned. That warning has only become more urgent with the Union Pacific derailment in Houston, which killed one truck driver and sent more than 20 cars, some carrying hazardous materials off the tracks. The data that is reported through the Federal Railroad Administration shows that the frequency of accidents is increasing, Reagan said. The railroad industry will tell you that the number of derailments and the number of accidents have decreased. But if you take it based on the data that measures accidents per train mile, that's actually increased over three of the four big railroads. And that translates into increased risk for all rail workers and surrounding communities alike, he adds. That's why we are constantly fighting to maintain the safety standards we have and improve them. Ultimately, though, rail workers who have been blocked by the Biden White House in seeking basic workplace guarantees such as sick leave can't be the only force holding rail carriers accountable in critical matters of public safety. The DOT, which has long treated rail carriers as clients rather than regulatory subjects, needs to meet the present public safety crisis with more extensive and robust regulatory measures. It's more evident than ever that the DOT needs to act to increase the maintenance and inspection cycles for all of these cars on our tracks, and not just the hazmat, but all of them. Gruters agrees. It's going to take more than one labor contract to resolve some of these issues. It will take government regulation. Ultimately, the railroads are not going to do the things they need to do to make it safe for workers and the communities that we're traveling through unless they're forced to do it. For too long, industry and government alike have been asleep at the switch in pursuing fundamental guarantees of oversight and public safety. Again, they're asleep at the switch is how that writer describes it. I don't think that's the case. I think they know full well what they're doing. I think they know full well what they're doing, and I don't think they care that much. And I think that it's imperative on us. It's incumbent upon us to demand more, to demand better. And I don't know if that's going to include writing campaigns. I don't know if that includes just straight up protests where, protesters don't let trains go through. I don't know. But I do know one thing. We are not going to have the allies that we need if we are not outraged by the apathy that these big corporations show towards not only their consumers, but the residents that live in the areas that they operate. It's pitiful that they get away with what they get away with, and it's not by accident. And if you're foolish enough to believe that it's by accident, then I have a bridge in Idaho that I want to sell you. Some beachfront property out there in Oklahoma for you. All right. Anywho, my name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Don't forget, the fight is not left and right. The fight is up and down. And it's going to take solidarity, class solidarity, to win always. Each one teach one, get out there and reach one. And don't forget, there can never be a union without you and I, front and center. Peace out.